Iranian politics in the Gulf used to look like this. Right now, it looks like this. Following the joint Israeli and US attacks on Iran, the Islamic Republic lashed out and struck its neighbours, all the Gulf nations, also referred to as GCC countries. Many places it hit host US bases or military facilities. Even so, those retaliation strikes have not only done actual damage, they've also done significant diplomatic damage. That was made clear by the Qatari Prime Minister in an exclusive interview with Sky News 10 days into the war.
What happened is really a huge shakeup for the trust in the relationship that we have with Iran.
Iran's response greatly increased the cost of the war, economically by pushing up oil and gas prices, and politically too, because instead of 3 countries being involved, Iran, Israel and the US, the war now directly affects more than a dozen countries in one way or another.
They are working on the assumption that if I'm going down, you're all going down with me.
The conflict has the potential to shake the region to its core. To understand why, we need to look at a couple of dynamics. A few years ago, the Islamic Republic had started to draw up agreements with the Gulf states, and one reason for that is in Yemen. The militant Houthi rebel group there is a proxy of Iran and designated a terror group by the US. The Houthis had been attacking ships and oil fields in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Their agreement with the Saudis and the UAE, both had previously launched air campaigns during the Yemen civil war in support of Sunni-backed forces. Houthis and Iran are Shiite. Those Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia and the UAE made those countries look to Iran for answers.
What the Islamic Republic managed to create anxiety across the Gulf, that if you do not normalize relations with us, we're going to attack. One way or another, we're going to hurt you, which they've done.
Sara Bazubandi is a researcher on Iran and the GCC countries. She has decades of experience on security and peace in the region. Some Gulf states decided to deal with Iran, not because they had a lot in common, but from a cautious pragmatism. The UAE and Iran made a sort of gentleman's agreement to refrain from inflicting pain on each other. Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic even agreed to restore ties and reopen embassies.
So there was some functioning, unwritten security agreements between them. And I wouldn't say that they were close by any stretch of imagination. They were not cooperating in any sense, but they just had some sort of understanding that they wouldn't hurt each other.
Iran hoped this would end up affecting trade relations and boost its economy, which has been suffering under sanctions. And the Gulf states needed stability. They were embarking on huge projects to move their economies away from oil to something more sustainable. They needed peace in order to foster the images they wanted of being vibrant, safe havens for commerce, tourism, and technology. All of that is now under threat.
Jordanian air defense crews recently intercepted a cluster of Iranian one-way attack drones headed to Amman. Bahrain's air defense forces shot down an inbound drone approaching Manama's maritime infrastructure, protecting both their population and critical shipping lanes. Saudi Patriot batteries stopped a salvo of ballistic missiles aimed at energy facilities near Tehran. The UAE neutralized multiple drones targeting Abu Dhabi's industrial zone, demonstrating speed and precision. And Qatari fighters for the first time have shot down 2 Iranian bombers that were en route to their location.
Those Iranian attacks went everywhere, but, it would seem, for different reasons. Although Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates had some relations with Iran, they were important hosts for the US military, like Saudi Arabia's Prince Sultan Air Base. In 2024, over 2,300 US soldiers were in Saudi Arabia. The UAE is home to the Al Dhafra Air Base, an important hub for the US Air Force. These military assets seem to have turned the countries hosting them into targets, regardless of whether the US used them to launch attacks against Iran.
It is not officially clear that these bases were used or not. various countries in the region, specifically including the United Arab Emirates, that is being now hit hard by the Iranian attacks, announced that they are not interested in letting the United States to use their airspace or their bases to attack Iran.
In the first days of the war, the UAE in particular was targeted by a lot of missiles and drones, almost as many as were fired against Israel in the first 24 hours. But the attacks were not just military. They also hit airports and civilian sites, including hotels, and oil and gas infrastructure. It was clearly a message.
Islamic Republic wants to demonstrate it to the regional leaders that you are vulnerable even with the US support, so you better join our quote-unquote team and forget about cooperation and security alliances with the United States because they can't defend you anyway.
These two countries were closer to Iran before the war, Qatar and Oman. Qatar shares a huge gas field with Iran, and its capital Doha was home for years to high-ranking members of Hamas. That's the Iranian proxy group in the Gaza Strip, classified as a terrorist organization by the EU and the US. It carried out the October 7th attacks on Israel. Even so, Qatar has been under attack. Qatar has largely intercepted the missiles and drones Iran has been firing against it. But the government was forced to halt liquid natural gas production after an attack on industry infrastructure. The attacks have driven a wedge between their politicians, as a readout between Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and his Qatari counterpart shows.
Every paragraph started with the Qatari foreign minister categorically rejected the claims of Mr. Araghchi. Araghchi said, we did not attack civil infrastructure. Qatari side said, no, this is absolutely incorrect. We did attack civil infrastructure.
So what about Oman? It hosts a smaller US military presence than the other Gulf states. But still, Iran has not exempted the country as a target. It hit an oil tanker in the waters off Muscat, Oman's capital. This despite Oman having served as a mediator in the US-Iranian nuclear talks as recently as February of this year.
They have direct channels. I'm sure Araghchi and Foreign Minister of Oman could pick up the phone any minute and speak to each other. And perhaps the Omani government has really raised concern and said, this is not on. You cannot really alienate everybody around you because that is going to work to your detriment.
That diplomatic role might save Oman from significant Iranian attacks. When the fighting stops, Iran will need someone to help broker peace.
There needs to be somebody to mediate. So who better than Oman, who has the track record of having done these mediations before?
But right now, mediations and peace seem far away. US President Donald Trump wrote on his social network Truth Social, "No deal without unconditional surrender." The Iranians seem to be equally maximalist.
We are not asking for a ceasefire. And we don't see any reason why we should negotiate with the US. When we negotiated with them twice, and every time they attacked us at the middle of negotiations.
Indeed, their positioning would seem to be supported by their religion.
The Islamic Republic has this very ideologically driven concept that is emerging from the Shia theology, and that is victory through fear, which means you have to cause enough fear in your adversary that they would give up from even starting to fight and to confront you.
And the Gulf states seem to be a crucial part of this strategy. Iran cannot hit the US directly, so it's hitting them instead. The strategy would seem to be one of inflicting pain, economic pressure, and social disruption on the Gulf states to show the US and Israel that their attacks come at a high price. That's a risky strategy that some say could backfire.
This miscalculation by the Iranians to attack the Gulf countries has destroyed everything.
The Iranian president did apologize to those neighbors his country had attacked. But this was swiftly retracted, and the attacks continued. Perhaps a sign of internal Iranian divisions, where the side wanting to make amends was shut down. This left the Gulf states no more secure.
If I was sitting in Abu Dhabi, if I was sitting in Riyadh, and watching these developments, there would be two thoughts going on in my head. One would be that, the United States started something, they better end it well. The second thought would be that how could we possibly trust the Islamic Republic after what they've done?
So far, GCC countries have voiced their displeasure and intercepted incoming drones and missiles, but they haven't retaliated. That might change once they run out of defense capacities.
There is definitely a limit to that. And when that limit comes closer, they have to make a choice. They have to either join the effort with the United States to retaliate against Iran, or they have to just find a solution and join the Islamic Republic. I think the picture could be very black and white at that point.
So will Tehran's current strategy of causing fear across the Gulf translate into action, namely those countries pressuring the US to stop the war? Or will it ultimately backfire, and will those Gulf states attack Iran themselves and end up closer to the West in the long run? Much will depend on what Iran looks like in the future. After the recent events, its neighbours would have trouble trusting an unchanged regime.
But if the successor of the Islamic Republic was a normal state or wanted to coexist with the Gulf countries, they should behave better. They should be able to establish very early stages friendly relations with the GCC.
For now, the Iranian regime seems to be willing to do anything to stay in power, even if it means breaking with everyone around them. That would leave them without any regional friends at all. And how sustainable is that in the long term?